Failure. I cringe just saying the word failure. What is it about the word failure that makes a lump form in your throat, your heart beat as though it's going to jump right out of your chest, or your mind play the movie reel of the many times that you've failed before? Failure makes me think about the many times in my life that were the bottom of my career, the bottom of my relationships. Failure is internalized. Failure is identity forming. For me, the word failure makes me think back to being a young boy. I was the only son of a German immigrant family. I was awkward. I never quite fit in, not making the A team, not doing well in math or science because I wasn't doing it right. I wasn't doing it the American way. Failure makes me think of the time in high school that my friend committed suicide because a girl broke up with him. Maybe it's arrogant of me, but I can't help but think that I somehow failed him and his family because I could have done something. I was his friend. I should have done something, but I failed. Failure makes me think about the downward spiral that was my life after his suicide. Smoking, drinking, being rebellious, one bad decision after another. Those bad decisions led me to another failure. The failure to complete high school. When I dropped out of high school, I had no idea how difficult my next years would be because people viewed me as a failure, and I believed them. Take a second to think about your life. If I asked you to identify your most significant personal failure, what comes to mind? If you're anything like me at all, there are so many examples of personal failure. Relationships, moral failures, financial failures, that I have a hard time even pinpointing which one might actually have been the worst. I stand up here on this stage and I wonder, how is it that I got here? I mean, high school dropout to deputy chief of police. I'm even more amazed that when I speak around the country, people actually show up and listen to me. At some events, they read my bio. I stand to the side and I listen to him read that bio and I think to myself, who is that guy? I need to meet him. He sounds really impressive. The problem with a bio and a resume, mine or anybody else's for that matter, is that they're a highlight reel. A highlight reel in a world that thrives on short clips and sound bites. Short summaries of long-term struggles. But they're missing my story. They're missing the gritty story that got me onto this stage. But today isn't a day for me to share with you the highlight reel. Today is a day for me to share with you how I found the courage to stop identifying myself as a failure and start living as a man who's had the opportunity to learn because he's failed. For many years, I believed that I was a failure, and a lot of people thought the same. But my life is a journey dotted by people along the way who saw something in me, something I didn't see in myself. They cheered me on, pushed me forward, and played an important role in my transformation. After I dropped out of high school, I was fortunate enough to have someone who cared about me suggest I join a law enforcement explorer program. I remember walking in the door at that police station. I was in awe of the cops that I met. The uniforms, the police cars, the gear, but most importantly, the people that I met. I got to know the people who wore the uniforms, drove the police cars, and had the cool kit. What I found was an amazing and dedicated group of people. But I found that they were human beings just like me. Everyone that wears a badge is a human being. Not some superhero, but a human being like me. I'd come to see them as having the same failures, the same challenges, and the same fears as me. This is the experience that led me to my path as my career in law enforcement. A few years later, after getting my GED, I had the opportunity to work as a public safety officer at Oakton Community College while working on my associate's degree. This included being sent to the police academy. My 10 weeks at the academy were really interesting. Obviously, a major focus of police academy training is physical fitness with early morning runs and PT each day. By the time I graduated the academy, I'd had enough PT and running to last me a lifetime. or so I thought. After a little more than a year at Oakton Community College, I got hired by the Buffalo Grove Police Department. Like many new cops, as we get indoctrinated into this profession, I spent too much time socializing with other cops. Long shifts followed by time at the local bar. I remember the first time my coworkers took me to a local cop bar at 7 a.m. I was shocked at the size of the crowd. Granted, it was the only bar open, but it was packed. It was mostly cops with a few postal workers in uniform. Weird, right? I love being a cop. The culture, the sense of belonging. As I look back now, though, I can actually draw a chart of how my mindset shifted from being a community helper to being a disgruntled and angry cop. Every waking moment was spent with other cops and a few other like-minded people who understand the BS we in this public service business sometimes put up with. For 17 years or so of my career, I had a really hard time getting promoted and moving forward. For almost 2 decades, I was mucked up in a career swamp, wanting specialties, wanting promotions, being so close yet so far. Always the runner-up, but never the chosen one. The many messages, you deserved it, you got screwed, it's all political. While maybe partly true or not, the messages didn't help me. The messages don't help you. They're self-confirming to the status quo, and they put all the power on influences outside of your control. While some of the voices in the crowd weren't helpful, I did have some friends and mentors who challenged me to think bigger. They pushed me to look at my part in my life, the part that I actually control. While I have failed, sometimes epically, I am not a failure. My turning point came when I was almost 40 years old. Most 40-year-old men have some kind of midlife crisis, new hobbies, sports cars. Not me. I had a crisis of identity in a good way. It wasn't until I moved from I am a failure to I have failed that I began to understand that being a failure is different from failing. The turning point for me came during a 10-week course at Northwestern University's School of Police Staff and Command. I hated the idea of going to that course. I had a wife who was a full-time prosecutor, 2 young kids, a new house, and a lot of other stuff going on. To complicate matters, my command staff at the time required that we commute to all in-state courses. Never mind the fact that I lived 300 yards from the Wisconsin-Illinois border, and there really is no good way to get to Evanston, Illinois from there. On a good day with no traffic, it was an hour and 15-minute drive. But since I was driving into and coming back during the heart of rush hour, and the highway was undergoing a major reconstruction, the shortest drive for me was 2 hours each day. During my time at Staff and Command, though, something changed. I began to understand that I didn't know everything, that there were things I needed to learn and could learn. I began to see myself as a learner. David Brooks, in his book, The Road to Character, said, "Success leads to the greatest failure, which is pride. Failure leads to the greatest success, which is humility and learning." The process lit a fire in me to grow and learn more. After Staff and Command, I decided I was going to go for my bachelor's degree. It was hard work, but the sense to finish it was steady. I wasn't going to fail to finish again. Been there, done that. I learned from my prior experiences, and I committed to finishing. When I finished my bachelor's degree, I wasn't done yet. I went on and finished my master's degree because I believed that I had to prepare myself to serve in some bigger role. I'd finally mustered the courage to let go of failing as a reflection of me, of who I am, and to see it as an opportunity to move forward stronger. It took me a while, nearly 20 years, to see that the path of my failings were not the greatest obstacle, but they presented the greatest opportunity to move forward to my place in the world. Ease does not beckon us to move forward. Ease is a comfortable place to stay. It's the struggle, the difficulty that moves us forward, that propels us past our comfortable status quo. Passed over for specialties, lack of promotion. It wasn't until I started owning my part in those disappointments that I began to change. My perspective on failing shifted. There was more for me to do where I was at and more for me to do in the world. Was I the man my organization needed? The experiences of failing drove me to read more, to take risks, to seek out valuable mentors who could challenge me and my ideas. There were people along the way who spoke wisdom in my life, but for years I had difficulty hearing them. My identity is a failure. My pride, my self-assuredness, my false sense of confidence, they all got in the way of hearing the wise and valuable feedback that would have been so helpful on this journey. But with an attitude of humility and by embracing failing, I was actually able to hear the feedback of my valuable mentors. The obstacles did not just suddenly clear away. I still got passed over for promotions. But I no longer saw that as anyone's responsibility but mine. The disappointment, the frustration, the path of failing no longer defined me. By embracing the obstacle, by leaning into it as part of the journey, the obstacles provide the opportunity to mold my character, to fortify my core beliefs, and become more focused on my sense of purpose. The process of embracing failings is much like the process a blacksmith uses to form a piece of iron. Iron by itself is limited in use. It's not until the blacksmith heats it that it becomes malleable and bendable. The iron has to humble itself to the heat before it can become useful and valuable. Then there's the process of forming it, striking it, turning it into what it's going to become. The process isn't easy. It's not comfortable. But the process is important. It becomes something useful, a sword, a tool. My journey to healthy living, to becoming a better person, involved me deciding to register for the Marine Corps Marathon in May of 2011. I never even made it to the starting line. Like many of us do, the idea of doing something new excited me. It energized me. But like a lot of new runners, or runners who are going back to the sport after a long layoff, in my case more than 20 years, I did too much too soon, and it wasn't long until I hurt myself. By mid-2010, I'd reached my peak weight. No, not the healthy peak, the unhealthy one. I'd somehow managed to ignore a common sense approach to appetite control and ballooned up to 231 pounds. I guess the logic should have led me to conclude that being significantly overweight and starting a running program required careful planning. But I wasn't that smart, failed again. As I said, though, I had a different view of failure by that point in my life. As Ernest Hemingway once said, the world breaks everyone, and some are stronger at the broken parts. This was the new me. No shortcuts, no simple solutions, no quick fixes. Just the grind and the courage to embrace it. On October 9th of this year, I completed the Chicago Marathon. I didn't break any records, trust me. It was nothing like I'd drawn it up on the whiteboard. Nothing like all the books and the articles that I'd read said it was going to go. The first 16 miles, they were amazing. I remember crossing mile 10, looking around at the other runners, the cheering crowds, the energy, the loud music, and I thought, this is going to be a lot easier than I expected. Yeah, right. I got to the halfway point, the half marathon, and I still thought, piece of cake, I can absolutely do this. Then I hit mile 16, and I felt this tightness in my quad. I'd felt it before. My last few long training runs created the exact same feeling. By mile 18, my 10:30 pace had come to a screeching halt, and I switched to a fast walk. It felt fast to me. Somewhere around mile 22, I got completely sick to my stomach. I remember walking into a porta potty, and I walked back out somewhere around mile 23, and I saw this bus, this really nice bus. And I thought, that bus right there, that's the ticket. Because this was a stupid idea, and this sucks. I thought, if I just go get on that bus, it'll take me right back to the starting line where there's free food and free beer. Score. But all my past failures had taught me something about myself. They taught me that if I just embrace the challenge, I can overcome and do anything I set my mind to. I worked my way back to the race course and started to head down toward the finish line. No, I didn't suddenly start running again, have the best 3.2 mile run of my life. Nothing like that at all. It was excruciating. By then I knew, though, that nothing was going to stop me from crossing that finish line under my own power. After 5 hours and 29 minutes on that course, I completed the Chicago Marathon. We lost power again. So my question for you is this. How do you see failure? Is failure an obstacle that keeps you stuck? Or is failure an opportunity? An opportunity for you to grow courage and try something different, become better. Because it's the obstacles, it's the failures that give us the greatest opportunity to find our success in the world. The question for you is, what are your obstacles? Who's the person you've always wanted to become? What's that thing you've always wanted to do? And my challenge for you is, will today be your day to grow courage from failure? Thank you.